Welcome to Monk's Temple. Find a place of rest, wherever you are. Let the weight of the day settle. Let your eyes soften. Let your hands relax. There is no need to be anywhere else but here, listening to the sound of this voice, a gentle companion in the quiet. Tonight, we turn our attention to a visitor that comes to every heart, a guest that often arrives unannounced and fills the room with its heat, anger. But we will not meet it with fear or with force. Through the ancient, compassionate wisdom of Buddhism, we will learn to greet it, to understand its language, and to gently transform its fire into a light that warms without burning. This is a long, slow practice. It is the practice of a lifetime. The Buddha himself taught that the path to true peace is not the easy path. It is the steep path, the one that asks for patience, for courage, for a gentle, unwavering attention. But it is the only path that leads home to a steady heart. So let us begin this journey, not with urgency, but with a kind of spacious curiosity, as if we are explorers of our own inner landscape. I remember, many years ago, walking through a forest near the monastery in the thick heat of late summer. The air was heavy and still. I came upon a clearing where a spider had built an immense, intricate web between two old pines. The morning sun caught the dew on each silken thread, and it looked like a necklace of diamonds, a perfect, geometric mandala hanging in the air. I sat and watched for a long time. Then, a breeze picked up. A small branch, dislodged from above, tumbled down and tore right through the center of the web. The beautiful structure collapsed into a sad, sticky tangle. The spider, who had been resting at the edge, did not stir for a moment. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, it moved to the center of the wreckage. It did not try to salvage the old pattern. It did not thrash about in frustration. It simply attached a new thread to a solid anchor point and began, slowly, patiently, to spin again. By the afternoon, a new web, just as intricate, gleamed in the light. The old, torn web was simply incorporated into the new one, a lesson woven into the foundation. Our minds are like that. We work so hard to build a beautiful, perfect understanding of how our day should go, how people should act, how life should be. And then, an unexpected event, a harsh word, a disappointment, a frustration, comes like that falling branch and tears right through the center of our peace. Our first, raw reaction is often like the spider's stillness, a shock, a freeze. But then we have a choice. We can become the spider who begins again with patience, or we can become the one who thrashes in the tangled threads of, "Why me?" and "This is unfair," sticking ourselves further in the mess. Buddhism teaches us the art of the patient weaver. Anger is the thrashing. Peace is the slow, deliberate attaching of a new thread to the solid anchor of our breath, and beginning to weave again, incorporating the tear into the wisdom of the new pattern. If this idea of being a patient weaver of your own peace, of learning to spin a new pattern from life's tears, speaks to you, I invite you to join our quiet community here at Monk's Temple. Subscribing is like choosing a solid anchor point for your own web, a reminder, delivered gently to your day, to return to the practice of weaving peace, thread by patient thread. We would be so honored to have you here with us. Now, let us look more closely at this web, this mind. In the teachings of the Buddha, mindfulness is the first foundation. It is not about clearing the web of all feeling. It is about noticing the quality of the silk, the tension of the threads. It is about becoming aware of the very first vibration when a troubling wind begins to stir. Before the branch falls, there is a change in the air. Before the full heat of anger floods our system, there is a signal, a first, faint tremor in the body and the mind. We must learn to become exquisite listeners to these subtle tremors. Imagine your awareness as a vast, deep, mountain lake at dawn. The surface is perfectly still, mirroring the sky. This is your natural state, beneath all weather. A thought or feeling is like a pebble dropped into the center. Plink. Ripple. The pebble of a remembered insult, of a present irritation, of a future worry. Anger is not a single pebble. It is a handful of gravel thrown in with force. The surface explodes in chaos, the clear reflection shatters. We become completely identified with the chaotic, splashing water. We believe we are the turbulence. Mindfulness is the profound remembrance, even as the water churns, that you are the entire lake, not just the broken surface. You are the depth that holds the disturbance. You are the stillness that existed before the pebble and will return after the ripples settle. The practice, then, is to feel yourself as the lake. To drop beneath the storm of splashing thoughts and feel the cool, dark, immense calm of your own depths. In those depths, the disturbance is held, contained, and eventually, absorbed back into peace. The Buddha taught that nothing is to be clung to, not even our own agitated states. By seeing anger as a temporary weather system on the lake of our being, intense, but passing, we rob it of its power to define us. We create a sacred space between the feeling and the one who feels it. In that space, our freedom is born. Let us now turn our attention from the lake's surface to the vessel that holds it, the body. The Buddha's teachings are profoundly earthy, they are rooted in the direct experience of this physical form we inhabit. Anger is not just a story in the mind. It is a full-bodied event. Long before we form the words, "I am angry," the body has already composed a symphony of tension, a silent aria of reaction. The jaw sets like a stone. The shoulders climb toward the ears, building tiny fortresses of strain. The breath, that gentle tide within us, becomes shallow and rapid, lapping frantically at the shores of the chest as if a storm surge is threatening. The hands may curl, the belly may tighten. This is the body's ancient, wise language. It is preparing for battle in a world where, most often, no battle is required. We must learn to listen to this body speak. It is our earliest warning system. To ignore it is to be like a sailor who sees the barometer falling and the wind shifting, yet decides to sail directly into the gathering dark. The body's signals are not the enemy, they are faithful messengers. Buddhism teaches the unity of mind and body, nama and rupa. They are not two. An agitated mind instantly sculpts an agitated form. And here lies our most accessible and powerful tool, this truth flows both ways. A calmed, soothed body can gently persuade a turbulent mind toward peace. We speak to the mind through the hands of the body. So, let us practice listening. Not with analysis, but with a gentle, internal scan. Where is the tightness now? In the forehead? The throat? Place your awareness there as you would place a warm, damp cloth on a tense muscle. Do not try to force it to relax. Just offer it your acknowledging presence. And then, attend to the breath. Do not command it. Invite it. Imagine your breath is a kind friend come to soothe a fevered brow. It does not shout instructions. It simply sits and offers its cool, steady presence. I will tell you a story about breath, from my teacher. He spoke of a blacksmith's bellows in the village where he grew up. When the blacksmith needed a fierce, concentrated heat to temper a blade, he would work the bellows in short, hard, rapid bursts. Huff 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 huff. The fire would roar white-hot. This, my teacher said, is the breath of anger. It is the bellows pumping fury into the flames of our emotion. But when the blacksmith's work was done for the day, and he was simply tending the hearth to keep his home warm, he would use the same bellows differently. One long, slow, full press to draw air deep into the chamber. A pause. Then one long, slow, complete release. The fire would glow with a deep, red, steady warmth. It would not roar. It would hum. This, he said, is the breath of peace. It is the same instrument, used with a different intention. Your lungs are your bellows. You are the blacksmith of your inner climate. Will you choose short, hard pumps to create a blinding, destructive heat? Or will you choose long, slow, full breaths to maintain a gentle, enduring warmth? Let us practice being that blacksmith at rest. Right now, wherever you are, take in a breath through the nose, not as a gasp, but as if you are drawing up cool, clear water from a deep, still well. Let it fill you slowly, from the basin of the belly, rising to the chest. Feel the expansion, the spaciousness. Hold it for just a moment at the top, not with strain, but like a cup filled to the brim. Then, release it through the mouth, even slower, as if you are pouring that water out onto the roots of a thirsty tree. Do this 3 times. With the first breath, you are signaling to the body, the emergency is over. With the second breath, you are whispering to the mind, we have all the time we need. With the third breath, you are affirming to the heart, in this moment, we are safe. This is not avoiding anger. This is creating the stable, oxygen-rich inner environment where anger can be witnessed, rather than obeyed. This practice of mindful breathing, called anapanasati in the Buddhist teachings, is the cornerstone. It returns us to the present moment, the only place where we can ever find peace. The angry mind is always time-traveling, replaying a past injustice or projecting a future conflict. The breath is an anchor in the now. Its rhythm is always present tense. By joining it, we are pulled from the turbulent seas of what was, or what might be, and brought home to the solid ground of what is. And in the what is, there is often simply this, a body breathing, a heart beating, and a spacious awareness that can hold it all. Now, having found a foothold in the present through the anchor of the breath, having stilled the bellows from their frantic pumping, we find ourselves in a room within that is quieter. The initial storm surge has receded. Here, in this calmer space, we can light a lantern of inquiry. This is the stage of wise reflection, or Yoniso Manasikara in the Pali language of the Buddhist texts. It is not an interrogation. It is not about assigning blame to yourself or another. It is a gentle, curious turning of the light onto the very nature of the anger itself. We move from being swept away by the wave to studying the wave, its origin, its composition, its path. The Buddha taught the principle of dependent origination. Nothing arises independently. Everything, including a powerful emotion, comes into being because of a complex web of causes and conditions. Your anger is not a solid, independent boulder that simply appeared. It is more like a specific formation of clouds. It required certain temperatures, certain winds, certain particles in the air to take its shape. Wise reflection is the study of that meteorology of the mind. Ask yourself, with the softness you would use to ask a frightened child what happened, what conditions came together for this feeling to arise. Trace it back gently. Often, you will find the immediate trigger is just the last leaf on a much older branch. A tone of voice that felt dismissive. But why did that tone land so heavily? Perhaps because of a long-held feeling of being overlooked. And why does that feeling reside here? Perhaps from a story you've carried for years. You see, you are not just angry at the tone. You are angry at the entire, ancient tree of conditions that made you vulnerable to that tone. But here is the liberating insight: when you see the tree, you realize the problem is not the single leaf. You can address the health of the entire tree. This is where true healing begins. Let me share a story from the early days of my time at the monastery. There was an old, wooden door leading to the vegetable garden. It was thick, oak, and had been painted so many times over the decades that the paint had built up into thick, uneven layers, like geologic strata. It was hard to open. It would stick in the frame, especially in the humid season. One of my tasks was to sand it down and repaint it. I started with coarse sandpaper, frustrated at the stubborn, gummy layers. I sanded with more and more force, my annoyance growing with each sticky pass. Finally, in a moment of impatience, I pushed too hard. The sandpaper tore, and my knuckles scraped roughly against a hardened drip of ancient paint. I sat back, nursing my hand, feeling a hot wave of frustration, at the door, at the task, at my own clumsiness. My teacher happened to be walking by. He saw me sitting there, and without a word, he picked up a different block of sandpaper, one with a much finer grit. He knelt by the door and began to sand not with force, but with a slow, circular, almost caressing motion. He did not attack the paint. He attended to it. After a few minutes, he blew away the dust and revealed something astonishing. Beneath the top layers of dull white, there was a layer of faded blue, and beneath that, a glimpse of a beautiful, deep forest green. The original color, from perhaps a century ago. When we meet resistance with force, he said quietly, still making those gentle circles, we only create more friction, and we hurt ourselves. We see only the ugly top layer. But when we meet resistance with patient, gentle attention, we begin to see the history. We see all the layers that were applied for good reasons, long ago, that have now hardened and stuck. And sometimes, we even rediscover the original beauty beneath. Your anger is like that old paint. The immediate feeling is the sticky, top layer. Wise reflection is the fine grit sandpaper of patient attention. You are not trying to destroy the door of your experience. You are gently sanding, inquiry by inquiry, to understand what layers lie beneath. What is this really about? Is it truly about this moment, or is it an old layer of fear, of insecurity, of a past hurt, that has been triggered? As you sand with questions, not with judgments, you may rediscover something beautiful underneath, a deep need for respect, a longing for safety, a genuine care that has been masked by the protective, hardened layer of rage. The anger itself often begins as a protection for something much more tender and vulnerable. This is a profound shift that Buddhism offers. Anger is often a secondary emotion. It is the guard dog barking loudly. But what is it guarding? Usually, it is guarding a wound. A feeling of hurt, of fear, of helplessness. When we can, with the breath as our calm companion, sit quietly with the guard dog and see past its noise to the tender thing it protects, the barking often subsides. We can then address the wound itself with compassion, rather than just reacting to the alarm. This process of gentle sanding, of layer-by-layer inquiry, dissolves the solidity of the anger. It becomes less of a monstrous thing, and more of a process, a pattern of conditions that you can, with patience, understand and reassemble into peace. As we learn to sand down the hardened layers with patient inquiry, we encounter a crucial crossroads. In the space that opens up, an impulse often arises, the impulse to speak, to act, to do something with the energy of the feeling. This is the moment where our practice deepens from internal understanding to external grace. The Buddha placed immense emphasis on right speech and right action, not as moral commandments, but as practical, life-preserving arts. He taught that before we express anything through body or speech, we should wisely reflect, is this act, is this word, going to lead to my own affliction, to the affliction of others, or to the affliction of both? Is it skillful? Is it timely? Is it motivated by compassion? When anger is present, our words become arrows and our actions become hammers. We feel a desperate need to release the pressure, to make the other person feel the heat we feel, to correct the perceived wrong with force. But the Buddha's wisdom asks us to consider the aftermath. An arrow shot in anger may hit its target, but it also leaves the archer's hands empty and stained with the intention to harm. A hammer swung in frustration may drive a nail, but it risks splitting the wood of the relationship beyond repair. I will tell you a story about a hollow bamboo flute. An old musician lived near the monastery, a master of the simple bamboo flute. His music could express profound joy or bottomless sorrow. One day, a noisy, bitter argument broke out between two neighbors in the village, their shouts shattering the afternoon peace. The old musician did not go to reason with them or shout for quiet. He simply went to his porch, sat down, and began to play his flute. At first, the argument drowned out the soft, reedy notes. But he continued. He played long, slow, single notes that hung in the air like questions. He played a melody that was neither happy nor sad, but simply clear. One by one, the shouts subsided. The neighbors paused, listening. The space that was filled with clashing words became filled with this single, pure sound. By the time the song faded, the heat of the argument had dissipated. The two men went back inside their homes, not in victory or defeat, but in a kind of shared, quiet awe. The musician later explained, the flute is hollow. It has been emptied of its inner nodes. Because it is empty, it does not add its own noise to the breath. It only transmits the breath as music. My mind, when I see conflict, must become like that flute. I must empty it of my own opinions, my own desire to be right, my own reactive noise. Then, if I choose to act or speak, it is not my anger that is transmitted. It is my breath, my intention. That passes through the hollow space of a calm mind, and it may become an action that clears the air, rather than clogs it further. Your practice, then, in the face of rising anger, is to cultivate this hollow bamboo quality. It is not a passive surrender. It is a powerful, disciplined emptiness. Before you speak, feel the impulse as a hot breath. Then, let that breath pass through the hollow space of a pause. Ask the Buddha's questions: will this help? Will this heal? Is this necessary? Often, you will find that the most skillful action is inaction. The most healing speech is silence. This is not weakness. This is the strength of the deep canyon that creates an echo, not by shouting, but by its very depth and stillness. This echoes the Buddhist concept of samavaka, right speech. It is speech that is truthful, helpful, kind, and timely. Angry speech almost always fails these tests. It may contain a distorted truth, but it is never helpful, rarely kind, and almost never well-timed. The space of the hollow flute allows the initial, chaotic breath of reaction to settle, so that if words must eventually come, they can be chosen from a place of clarity, not confusion, from care, not combat. So, when you feel the words rising like steam, picture the bamboo. Feel the hollow space within your own chest. Take the breath that wants to become a shout and let it become, instead, 3 long, silent breaths that pass through that hollow space. Transform the reactive energy into listening energy. You may find that in the silence that follows, the other person's own pain becomes audible, and your response can then be one of address rather than attack. You are not repressing your anger, you are transmuting its raw energy into the focused energy of compassionate presence. You are becoming the flute, not the fist. In the hollow, listening space we cultivate, we encounter the essential soil in which peace must grow, patience. The Pali word is khanti, and it is not passive resignation. It is not gritting your teeth while internally seething. In the Buddha's teachings, patience is an active, resilient force. It is the capacity of the earth to receive the pounding rain and not become mud. It is the strength of the deep root to withstand the storm without breaking. Anger is impatience incarnate. It is the demand for immediate change, for instant redress, for the world and others to conform to our will right now. Patience is the wise understanding that all things unfold according to conditions, and that our power lies not in controlling the wind, but in adjusting our sails with steady hands. Imagine you are holding a handful of fine, dry seeds, seeds of understanding, seeds of reconciliation, seeds of peace. Anger is like trying to force these seeds to grow by clenching your fist tightly around them. The pressure, the heat, the lack of space, it only crushes them. Patience is the act of opening your hand, gently laying the seeds in fertile soil, watering them faithfully, and then sitting back under the sun, trusting in the unseen, silent work of growth beneath the surface. It is an act of profound faith in process over impulse. I recall a stonecutter who used to visit the temple. He worked with the hardest granite, shaping it into pillars and milestones. He was a man of few words, and his face was as weathered and steady as the stone he cut. One afternoon, I saw him at work on a particularly stubborn block. His chisel would strike, and only a tiny, almost invisible flake would come away. Strike after patient strike, with a rhythm as constant as a heartbeat. I asked him, "Does it ever frustrate you, how little comes away with each blow?" He paused, wiped his brow, and pointed to a corner of the temple courtyard. There, a large, smooth basin collected rainwater from the roof. Directly above it, hanging from the eaves, was an old iron spout. A single drop of water hung, gathered its weight, and fell. Plink. It struck the exact same spot in the stone basin that countless drops had struck for 100 years. And in that basin, there was a deep, smooth, perfect hollow worn into the solid rock. "The chisel is my drop of water," he said. "I am not fighting the stone. I am in conversation with it. Each strike is a word. Impatience is like trying to shout the stone into shape. It doesn't work. You just lose your voice. But a patient word, repeated, with clear intention, will always find its way. Anger is the shout. Patience is the drop of water. Remember, the drop does not think, "I must hollow out the rock today." It simply falls, again and again, faithful to its nature. And one day, there is a hollow deep enough to hold water for the birds to drink from. This is the patience the Buddha taught. It is the daily, moment-to-moment practice of returning to your intention, your breath, your gentle inquiry, your hollow silence, without demanding immediate results. You are not waiting for the anger to never arise again. You are practicing the faithful, repetitive drop of letting it go each time it does. You are wearing a new pathway in the stone of your old habits, not through violent force, but through unwavering, gentle persistence. This Kanti extends beyond patience with external events to a radical patience with yourself. When you fail, when the shout escapes before the pause, when you feel the familiar heat and clench your fist around the seeds, this is not a cause for a second wave of anger at your own failure. That is just more pounding rain on mud. This is the moment for the patience of the earth. To receive the failure, to let it soak in without judgment, and to simply, patiently, open your hand again. The Buddha's path is one of understanding, not of perfection. Each moment of impatient anger is another drop falling. Is it wearing away at your peace, or is your patient awareness the steady basin that is being deepened and smoothed by the experience? You choose the metaphor you live by. From the bedrock of patience, a softer, yet immensely powerful force can emerge: compassion. In Pali, karu. This is the natural response of a heart that understands suffering, in others and in oneself. Anger often feels powerful, but it is a brittle, isolating power. It builds walls. Compassion is a different kind of strength, a fluid, connecting power that builds bridges. The Buddha's radical teaching is that hatred and anger are never cured by more hatred and anger. They are like trying to put out a fire by pouring gasoline on it. He said, hatred is never appeased by hatred in this world. By non-hatred alone is it appeased. This is an eternal law. Compassion is that water of non-hatred. It is the intelligent, courageous choice to meet pain with healing, not with more pain. But we must understand this clearly. Compassion is not saying, "What you did is okay." It is not agreement or submission. It is not a sentimental feeling you must manufacture. It is, at its core, a clear-eyed recognition: this person is acting from pain, confusion, or ignorance, just as I sometimes do. Their anger is a reflection of their own suffering. Adding my anger to their suffering only increases the total amount of suffering in the world, including my own. Compassion is a strategy of de-escalation, first within your own being, and then in the space between you and another. Let me share a story about a salt lake. A traveler came upon a vast, landlocked lake so salty that nothing could live in it. Its shores were barren. Its water was bitter and stung the eyes. He sat by its edge, thirsty from his journey, but he could not drink. As he sat, he noticed a small, wounded bird. It had a broken wing and was desperately trying to peck at the hard, salty crust at the lake's edge, seeking moisture. The traveler's first feeling was anger. Anger at the lake for being so harsh, anger at the circumstance for the bird's suffering. But his anger did nothing. It only made his own thirst feel more acute. Then, he remembered the water skin on his own back. It was not much, but it was fresh, sweet water from a mountain spring. His anger had focused on what the lake was not. His compassion turned his attention to what he had. He did not pour his precious water into the vast, salty lake. An act that would be pointless and leave him with nothing. Instead, he cupped his hands, poured a little water into them, and offered it to the wounded bird. The bird drank. He poured a little more, washing the salt from its feathers. The act of focusing his limited resource on a single, concrete act of kindness did not change the salt lake. But it changed the bird's experience entirely, and in doing so, it transformed the traveler's own heart from a place of bitter impotence to one of potent grace. Your compassion in the face of another's anger, or your own, is that fresh water. You cannot pour it into the entire salty history of their pain and expect to change it. That will only deplete you. But you can offer a small, concrete cup of understanding. You can offer the cup of a calm response. You can offer the cup of a boundary set with kindness instead of retaliation. You can offer the cup of simply not striking back. This is not weakness. It is the most powerful action available, for it breaks the ancient, reflexive chain of hurt begets hurt. It injects a new element into the system, mercy. This is the practice of metta, loving kindness, and karu, compassion, that the Buddha prescribed as the direct antidote to ill will. You start by offering these wishes to yourself. May I be free from this suffering of anger. May I hold this pain with kindness. Then, you can extend it, if you are able, to the other person. May you, too, be free from the suffering that is causing you to act this way. You are not wishing for them to win. You are wishing for them to be free from the confused, burning state that is causing the harmful behavior. This wish protects you. It keeps your own heart from becoming a bitter, salt lake. It ensures that your precious inner resources are used for healing, not for adding to the poison. Compassion, therefore, is the ultimate protection. Anger promises to protect you by attacking. Compassion actually protects you by insulating your heart from the corrosive effects of hatred and by giving you the clarity to respond wisely, not react blindly. It is the fresh water you carry within. Guard it. Use it wisely. Offer it where it can actually be received. Starting always with your own parched and weary heart. Now we arrive at a truth that underlies all the others, a truth that can liberate us from the very grip of anger if we allow it to seep into our bones, the truth of impermanence, anicca. The Buddha taught that all conditioned things, thoughts, feelings, sensations, situations, and even our own selves, are in a constant state of flux. They arise, they persist for a time, and they pass away. Nothing lasts. Anger, for all its volcanic intensity, is no exception. It is not a permanent state of being. It is a passing weather pattern in the sky of your awareness. When we are caught in its storm, we believe it is eternal. We believe, I am an angry person, or, this situation will always make me feel this way. Anicca is the gentle, liberating reminder, this too shall pass. Think of anger as a wave in the ocean. From the surface, a wave appears as a distinct, powerful, separate entity. It has a crest, a peak of intense energy. It seems solid, unstoppable. It can crash against the shore with tremendous force. But what is a wave, fundamentally? It is not a thing you can hold. It is a movement of energy through water. It is a temporary formation, entirely dependent on wind and current and the ocean's depth. The wave does not come from somewhere and go to somewhere else. The water simply rises and falls in place. The wave form moves, but the water itself is just oscillating. Your anger is that wave. Your awareness is the ocean. The angry thought or feeling is a temporary formation of energy moving through the vast, deep space of your mind. It has no solid core. It is empty of permanence. When you see this directly, you stop identifying with the crest of the wave. You remember you are the ocean, capable of holding the wave, of letting it move through you, and of knowing its nature is to subside. I remember a powerful lesson from a master who was creating a sand mandala. For days, he and his students painstakingly laid down millions of grains of colored sand into an incredibly intricate, beautiful geometric design representing the universe. It was a work of breathtaking precision and devotion. I watched, mesmerized by the concentration and the emerging beauty. When it was finally complete, after all that work, there was a ceremony. The master chanted. And then, with a single, smooth brush of his hand, he swept the entire mandala into a disordered heap of sand. He then poured the sand into a flowing river. The beautiful, complex universe was gone in a moment. The students, including myself, felt a collective gasp, a pang of loss. The master smiled. Its beauty, he said, was in its making, and in its letting go. If we cling to the form, we miss the truth. The truth is the sand, and the sand is now in the river, which will carry it to the sea. The form was always meant to return to formlessness. To cling to it would be to suffer. To see its true nature is to be free. Your angry outburst, your simmering resentment, your justified indignation, they are all like that sand mandala. You have constructed them with care, grain by grain of thought, into a complex, compelling pattern that seems solid and real. You have invested your energy in its architecture. But its nature is sand. It is inherently unholdable. The practice of anicca is the courageous, liberating act of seeing the mandala of your anger, appreciating its intricate, painful pattern for what it is, a temporary formation, and then, when the time is right, letting the breath of awareness sweep it back into the flowing river of experience. You are not destroying anything real. You are allowing a temporary pattern to return to its natural, fluid state. This understanding does not make the feeling less real in the moment. It simply removes its claim on forever. When you feel the heat rising, you can whisper to yourself, "This is a wave. I am the ocean. This is a sand painting. I am the space in which it is formed and released." This mantra of impermanence is a cooling balm. It creates a detachment that is not cold, but spacious. A space where you can choose your response, rather than being compelled by a force you believe is permanent. You stop declaring, "I am angry," and instead note, "Anger is present." This small shift in language reflects a massive shift in identity. You are no longer the weather. You are the sky that holds it, knowing the sun will shine again. From the understanding of impermanence, we can approach one of the most profound and challenging territories of the heart, forgiveness. Often, we think of forgiveness as something we grant to someone else, a moral victory we bestow upon them after they have suffered enough, or apologized sufficiently. In the light of the Buddha's teachings, forgiveness is something far more intimate and freeing. It is not about the other person at all. It is the internal act of unclenching a fist you did not realize you were still holding. It is the decision to stop carrying a hot stone from the past, imagining you can throw it at someone, while all the while it is burning only your own hand. Anger that is held onto, that is nursed and revisited, becomes a form of inner imprisonment. You build a cell around your own heart, and you place the person who wronged you as the guard outside. But you are the one locked inside, staring out through the bars of your own resentment. Forgiveness is the act of realizing you hold the key. It is walking out of that self-made cell and leaving the old story behind, not because the story wasn't painful, but because you are tired of living in that tiny, dark room. Let me tell you a story about a locked garden. There was once a woman who owned a beautiful, walled garden. It had fruit trees, fragrant herbs, and a clear, cool well at its center. But a neighbor, many years prior, had stolen from her trees and polluted her well in a fit of envy. Enraged, the woman had built a higher wall, installed a heavy, iron-banded gate, and locked it with a massive key. She never went into the garden again. She would sit in her house, looking at the high wall, her heart filled with bitterness for the theft and ruin. Years passed. The neighbor moved away. But the woman remained, the keeper of the locked gate, her life defined by what was sealed away. One day, a wandering gardener stopped at her home, asking for work. She said there was no work, only a ruined garden. Intrigued, the gardener asked to see it. Reluctantly, she led him to the gate, but refused to open it. He asked for the key. She clutched it tightly. "If I open it, I will have to see the ruin. It will hurt too much," she said. The gardener replied softly, "But you are already seeing the ruin every day. You see it in the wall you built. The garden may have changed without your seeing. The well may have cleared. Seeds may have fallen and new things may be growing. But you will never know until you use the key, not for the neighbor who is gone, but for yourself." Forgiveness is handing yourself that key. It is the courage to walk back into the garden of your own heart, to see what has grown in the neglect, to clear the weeds of old pain, and to taste the fruit of your own peace that has been ripening, unseen, all this time. The Buddha's path is one of releasing burdens, not of carrying ledgers of wrongs. To forgive is to complete the sentence, "For my own peace, I release you from the role of jailer in my mind." It does not mean you must trust that person again, or invite them back into your garden. It means you reclaim the territory of your own inner life. This is deeply connected to the Buddhist concept of letting go, or panna, wisdom. The wisdom here is seeing clearly that holding on to anger is a form of self-harm. It is a choice to continue drinking the poison and hoping the other person gets sick. When you forgive, you are simply putting down the poison cup. You are no longer allowing someone else's past action to dictate your present inner weather. The practice begins with forgiveness for yourself. For the anger you feel. For the times you have been the one who caused hurt, knowingly or unknowingly. You say to yourself, in that moment, with the conditions present, I acted from confusion. I forgive myself. I learn. I release. From that soft ground, you can then extend the intention outward. It may be a silent whisper in your heart, "For my freedom, I release you. I unbind you from my anger." You may have to do this 1,000 times. Each time you remember the hurt and feel the clench, you breathe, and you hand yourself the key again. You are not condoning. You are liberating yourself. Let us pause and consider a single, powerful question that can transform our relationship with anger: who is suffering? When anger arises, we are so often focused outwardly, on the person who triggered it, on the injustice of the situation, on what should or shouldn't be. We project the cause of our pain entirely outside of ourselves. But the Buddha's radical insight turns our gaze inward. He taught that the root of suffering is not in the external trigger, but in our attachment to how we believe things should be. The anger itself is a form of suffering. It is a burning, agitated, painful state of mind and body. So, in the midst of anger, if we can remember to ask, who is suffering here, the honest answer is always, I am. This is not a thought to induce guilt or self-blame. It is a flashlight in a dark room. It shifts the entire project from changing the outer world to stop my pain to tending to the pain that is already here, inside. The other person may be wrong. The situation may be unfair. But your anger is your experience. It is happening within the field of your own awareness. Therefore, it is within that field that you have the most direct agency to bring relief. I remember a man who came to the temple, furious with a business partner who had betrayed him. He paced, detailing the injustice, his face flushed. After listening for a long time, the old master finally asked, "This partner of yours, is he here in this room with us now?" The man, confused, said, "No, of course not." The master asked, "Then who is carrying the argument? Who is feeling the heat in the chest? Who is pacing?" The man stopped, and his shoulders sank. "I am," he said quietly. "Exactly," said the master. "You have brought him here, in your mind, and you are arguing with him, and you are losing sleep, and you are poisoning your own peace. Your partner has moved on, perhaps. But you are keeping him on retainer in your heart, paying him with your joy. Ask yourself, who is suffering? And then, be very, very kind to that person." This question, who is suffering, is the ultimate act of taking responsibility for your own inner climate. It is the foundation of self-compassion. When you see that you are the one burning, your motivation naturally shifts from fanning the flames to putting out the fire. You become the medic on your own battlefield, rather than another soldier throwing grenades. This is the heart of the Buddha's first noble truth: there is suffering. To acknowledge it within yourself, without deflection, is the beginning of the end of it. So, in your daily life, let this question be a quiet bell that rings in moments of irritation. Who is feeling this tightness? Who is hearing this harsh inner voice? Let the answer draw your care inward. Place a hand on your heart. Breathe into that space. You are not dismissing the outer problem. You are simply securing your own base camp before deciding how to navigate the terrain. A rescuer who is drowning cannot save anyone. By tending to your own suffering first, you ensure that any action you take later comes from a pool of clarity, not from a well of reactive pain. Consider the mountain. It is ancient, immense, rooted deep in the bones of the earth. Storms gather at its peaks. Winds howl with ferocious intent, tearing at its slopes. Lightning splits the sky, illuminating its face in stark, violent flashes. Rain lashes its sides in torrents, and clouds shroud its summit in impenetrable gray. Through it all, the mountain does not argue with the storm. It does not tense against the wind. It does not try to become the lightning or the rain. It simply remains, grounded in its own massive, silent presence. It allows the weather to expend its energy upon its slopes, knowing the storm's nature is to pass. And when it does pass, the mountain is still there. The sun returns, the streams carved by the rain now sing down its sides, and the air is left clean and sharp. Your awareness, your deepest sense of being, is that mountain. Your passing thoughts, your emotions, including the fierce storm of anger, are the weather. Buddhism invites you to cultivate this mountain-like quality of mind, unwavering, grounded, immovable in its essential nature. When anger arises, it is a storm on the mountain. It can be loud, dramatic, and all-consuming to those caught in it. But the mountain itself is not the storm. It is the space that holds the storm. Your practice is not to stop the storms from ever coming, they are a natural part of the climate of a human life. Your practice is to deepen your roots, to strengthen your sense of being the unwavering ground of awareness itself, so that no matter how violent the weather, you are not destroyed, you are not fundamentally altered. You remain. I learned this not from a scripture, but from watching an old pine tree that grew from a crack in a cliff face near the temple. For decades, perhaps centuries, it had been battered by monsoons, scoured by winter ice, and baked by summer sun. Its trunk was gnarled and twisted, its branches grew in sweeping, asymmetrical patterns dictated by the prevailing winds. Yet, it was profoundly alive, deeply green, and radiated a sense of unshakable dignity. It had not resisted the forces that shaped it, it had adapted to them, incorporated them into its very form, and in doing so, had become incredibly resilient. Its strength was not in rigidity, but in a kind of flexible, rooted persistence. It was a mountain in tree form. When you feel the first gusts of anger, instead of becoming a leaf torn into the chaos, remember the mountain. Plant your awareness in the sensation of your body sitting or standing. Feel the solidity of the earth beneath you. Feel the weight of your bones. Breathe into your belly, the root of your mountain. Say to yourself, I am the mountain. This feeling is the weather. This is not a denial of the feeling. It is a change of identity. You are no longer a small boat in a hurricane, you are the coastline the hurricane meets. The energy will crash against you, but it cannot sweep you away, because you have remembered your true scale. This mountain meditation is a powerful form of samatha, calm abiding. It develops stability. Over time, as you practice returning to this mountain-like awareness, you create a default setting of inner stability. The storms may still come with the same intensity, but your relationship to them changes. There is less panic, less identification. You watch the lightning of angry thoughts flash across the sky of your mind with a kind of awe, knowing it illuminates but does not burn the core of who you are. You are the silent, spacious ground of the mountain, and all things that happen upon it are guests, however rowdy, who eventually take their leave. At the very foundation of the Buddha's path lies right view, samadhi. This is not about holding a correct opinion, but about seeing the nature of reality clearly, without the distortions of our preferences and aversions. When it comes to anger, our view is often deeply distorted. We see the other person as solely responsible for our pain. We see the situation as solid, fixed, and unbearable. We see our anger as a justified and necessary force. Right view invites us to gently correct our lens, to see the interconnected, fluid, and impermanent nature of the moment. It asks, are you seeing what is actually here, or are you seeing the story your pain is telling you? Imagine looking at a tree through a window. The window is clean, and you see the tree in its wholeness, roots, trunk, branches, leaves, all connected to the earth and sky. Now, imagine that window is splattered with mud from a recent storm. You look through a clear patch and see a leaf. You look through another and see a knot in the bark. Through a thick smear, you see only a distorted, brownish blur. You might start to believe the tree is just a collection of isolated, unconnected, or ugly parts. Your anger is that mud on the window. It splatters your perception, breaking reality into fragmented, hostile pieces. He is disrespectful. This is unbearable. Right view is the practice of cleaning the window. It is remembering that the leaf is part of a branch, the branch part of a tree, the tree part of a forest, all in a constant, interdependent exchange of air, water, and light. Let me share a story about two painters. They were both commissioned to paint a portrait of the old king. The first painter, eager for favor, saw only the king's power. He painted a towering, stern figure, emphasizing the crown, the scepter, the rigid posture of command. The second painter spent weeks not in the throne room, but in the gardens, the kitchens, and the libraries where the king walked. He saw the king's hands, scarred from old battles, gently tending a rosebush. He saw the weariness in his eyes when he thought no one was looking. He saw the faint smile for a young page. His portrait showed the king sitting on a simple bench, the crown beside him, a look of profound humanity on his face. The first portrait was impressive. The second was true. When we are angry, we are like the first painter. We paint a portrait of the other person using only one color, the color of their offense. We make them a monolithic figure of, the one who wronged me. Right view is the practice of the second painter. It is stepping back, widening the frame, and looking for the other conditions, their pain, their fear, their history, their humanity. This doesn't excuse harmful action, but it recontextualizes it. It moves the person from being a demon in your personal story to being a fallible human being caught in their own web of conditions, just as you are. This shift in view is often enough to take the venom out of the anger, to turn a personal attack into a shared human predicament. This is the view of dependent origination applied in real time. The Buddha taught that nothing exists in isolation. Your anger depends on your body, your past experiences, your thoughts, the other person's actions, the environment, and countless other factors. Seeing this interconnected web undermines the simplistic, blame-filled story that anger loves to tell. It introduces complexity, and in that complexity, space opens up. Space for curiosity instead of condemnation. Space for a breath. Space for a different response. So, the next time anger muddies your window, pause. Acknowledge the mud. Then, consciously begin the cleaning. Ask, what am I not seeing? What is the larger picture? What conditions are present? This is not intellectual. It is a heartfelt turning of attention from the fragmented splatter to the possibility of the whole, clean pain. Right view is the beginning of the end of suffering because it corrects the fundamental error, the error of taking our stained, partial perception for the whole, clean truth. We have journeyed together through many landscapes of the heart and mind. We have visited the sky of awareness, the anchor of the breath, the patient sanding of inquiry, the hollow bamboo of silence, the enduring drop of patience, the fresh spring of compassion, the flowing river of impermanence, the unlocked garden of forgiveness, the potter's wheel of daily life, the clear question of who suffers, the immovable mountain, and the clean window of right view. These are not separate teachings, but like facets of a single, luminous gem, the gem of a peaceful heart as taught by the Buddha. Each facet reflects the same essential truth: freedom from suffering comes from seeing clearly, letting go, and responding from a center of calm wisdom, not from a periphery of reactive heat. Now, let these concepts dissolve. Let there be no effort to remember or apply them. Let there only be this moment, and the gentle sound of this voice. Allow yourself to settle into a deep, effortless rest within yourself. You are not trying to achieve anything. You are simply coming home to the natural peace that is always here, beneath the weather of your thoughts. I will leave you with one final story, about a bell that no one ever heard ring. In the deepest archive of the monastery, there was said to be a small, perfect bell made of a single piece of crystal. It was so delicately crafted that the lightest touch would make it sing with a note so pure it was said to dissolve sorrow in the air. But it was kept wrapped in silk, inside a wooden box, inside a stone alcove. No monk ever rang it. I asked the eldest keeper of the archives why such a beautiful instrument was never used. He said, "Its purpose is not in its ringing. Its purpose is in its existence. We know it is here. We know its note is possible. That knowledge is enough to change the quality of the silence in this room. We practice so that our mind may become like that bell, so perfectly tuned, so clear, so at peace, that its mere presence, its untroubled silence, becomes a healing force in the world. The loudest anger cannot make it ring if it is not struck. Our practice is to learn not to strike ourselves. Your heart, your awareness, is that crystal bell. It is inherently clear, inherently resonant with peace. Anger, worry, fear. These are the mallets that strike it, creating dissonance and noise. The entire path we have walked is about learning to lay the mallet down. To stop striking yourself with the hard blows of judgment, with the frantic rhythm of panic, with the heavy thud of resentment. When you cease striking the bell, the noise fades. What remains is not emptiness, but a profound, vibrant silence that is alive with potential. That silence is your true nature. It is the Buddha nature within you. It is the peace that passes all understanding because it was never created and can never be destroyed. It can only be obscured by the noise we choose to make. So, as we conclude this long sharing, let this be your simplest practice. In moments of turmoil, in the face of the inner or outer storm, ask yourself gently, am I striking the bell? Feel the mallet in your hand, the clenched thought, the harsh word about to be spoken, the tightness in the body. And then, with the kindness you would show a child, simply open your hand. Let the mallet fall. Do not worry about the lingering sound. Just tend to the openness of your hand. Tend to the silence that begins to pool there. That silence is not yours to create. It is yours to remember. It is the crystal bell of your own heart, waiting, whole and clear, in the alcove of this present moment. Thank you for walking this path of peace with me. From all of us here at Monk's Temple, we wish you a heart that knows itself as the mountain, the sky, and the silent, crystal bell. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free. Go in kindness.